So as you all know, that during the Christmas season, Pastor and I have been going through the characters of Christmas. Started off with Zachariah and Elizabeth, and then we hit Joseph, Mary, wise men last week. This week, I am going to be talking about a very interesting character. A lot of us kind of think of him a little bit, but not that much. I'm going to be talking about Herod. King Herod. And I'm going to be in Matthew chapter 2. We're going to be in verse 1 through 23. Y'all there? I got one yes. Okay. You must be using your phone. Matthew 2, verse 1 through 23. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from the eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called the meeting of the leading priests and teachers and religious law, and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are not the least among the ruling cities of Judea. For the ruler will come from you, who will be a shepherd for the people of Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me, so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star that had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. After the wise men were gone, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother," the angel said. "Stay there until I tell you to return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." That night Joseph left for Egypt with the child and Mary, his mother, and they stayed there until Herod's death. This fulfilled what the Lord had spoken through the prophet, "I called my son out of Egypt." Herod was furious when he heard that the wise men outwitted him. He sent soldiers to kill all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, based on the wise men's report of the star's first appearance. Herod's brutal action fulfilled what God has spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A cry was heard in Raham, weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for they are dead. When Herod died, the angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. "Get up," the angel said. "Take the child and his mother back to the land of Israel, because those who are trying to kill the child are dead." So Joseph got up and returned to the land of Israel with Jesus and his mother. But when he learned the new ruler of Judah was Herod's son, he was afraid to go there. Then, after being warned in a dream, he left for the region of Galilee. So the family went and lived in a town called Nazareth. This fulfilled what the prophet had said, "He shall be called Nazarene." The title of my message today is the child threat. The child threat. Who was King Herod? Now, believe it or not, he actually wasn't really a king. He was appointed the kingship by the Romans. And he was in charge of the region of Judah. So if you really want to put things into perspective, go back to when Israel divided itself, when you had the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, and you begin to see that even in the Roman times, Israel was broken up into two different regions. You had Judah, which was under the control of Herod at the time, and Galilee area, which was controlled by a different governor at the time. He was a Roman client king. That is the official way of putting it. What does that mean? It means that he's in charge, but Rome is in charge of him. Anything that Rome says, he has to do. If not, bye-bye. He took office in around 40 BC. And he was actually given the title King of Judah by the Roman Senate. He wasn't given the title King of Judah by the people in Judah. It was given to him by Rome itself. He is noted for great building project. He renovated and rebuilt Solomon's temple. In fact, you can go to the Temple Mount and see the things that he did there because it's still there. He did great project. He built a great water system known as the aqueducts there, and it's actually still being used today in that area. He was also ruthless and paranoid. He was not from the line of David, nor did he come from a royal line, any royal Jewish line. He came from the line of Esau. Jacob's brother, you know, the one who sold his birthright. He comes from the line of Esau. And he ruled by fear and violence. You don't believe me? The people who were ruling Judah before him, he started a war against them with the Roman army, and he killed off the entire family so that there would not be anybody left who could challenge him from that line. He had many members of the Sanhedrin killed. He slaughtered his own family members. Anybody he viewed as a threat. He tried to have, listen to this, he tried to have all the elite leaders in Jerusalem killed the moment he died. That was the order. The order was when he takes his last breath, gather all the elite rulers in Jerusalem and take them out. They ignored it. Herod was afraid of losing his rule. So to make sure of this, he eliminated whatever rival he had or viewed as a threat. So paranoid, and then all of a sudden, the wise men show up. Now, can you imagine Herod's little predicament here? Anybody who's come to be a threat to him, he is taken out. Anybody who has tried to remotely get a little bit power, he is taken out. He killed his own wives because he viewed them as a threat to him. He killed some of his sons because he viewed they were a threat to him. You have tried so hard to make sure that you are feared and revered. And you are in charge of anything. You are literally telling people in Judah and beyond that I am who I am. There is nothing you can do about it. And then all of a sudden, you have a bunch of wise men come from the east who don't just do anything. The first thing they ask is, where is the one who was born King of the Jews? Where is he? We saw his star. Where is he? We have come to worship him. Now Herod has another problem because now this is worse than even... Too loud? No, sorry. This is worse than going up against your family members. This is worse than going up against the Sanhedrin. This is worse than anything else like that. Because everybody in Jerusalem knew one thing. Herod was not from the line of David. He was not the rightful king. He sat on the throne that did not belong to him. And now news reaches Herod that the Messiah, the rightful one to the throne, is born. Jerusalem was all up in a stir for two reasons. Number one, they heard the Messiah was born. Number two, Herod's a paranoid lunatic. So there is hope that begins to build up in the people because, oh my gosh, the Messiah is born. Did you hear that? The Messiah is born. We could actually have someone from the line of David back on the throne. We'll go back to the way it was. We'll go back to our former glory. And then someone else is going, do you think Herod's going to let that happen? Do you think Herod's going to let that happen? Paranoid Herod came up with a plan. He told the wise men, go and find the child. You see how he changed his language where it became very sincere, very, oh, yes, I want to worship him too. In his mind, he's going, this kid is gone. But that was his plan. I want to worship him too. I want to bow down. Yes, I'm in a way of saying, he is saying that I want to go and surrender my kingship to this child. Herod was not about to do that, not in your life. Paranoid Herod came up with a plan. Send the wise men, act all nice. They'll never get what's going on. And when they come back, I have the location, I have the child, and that's it. The throne shall remain mine. In Psalms 2, verses 1 through 6, it says, why are the nations so angry? Why do they waste their time with futile plans? The king of the earth prepare for battle. The rulers plot together against the Lord and against his anointed one. Let us break their chains, they cry, and free ourselves from the slavery to God. But the one who rules in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. Then in anger he rebukes them, terrifying them with a fierce fury. For the Lord declares, I have placed my chosen king on the throne of Jerusalem on my holy mountain. The earth is filled with people, and I mean 6 feet under, filled with people who have tried to take over rule from God. The earth is full of people who have tried to be rebellious to God. And we can see this all the way back to the very beginning at the garden, where it all started. See, if you ever want to put things in perspective, the Christmas story doesn't start in Bethlehem in Judea where Jesus was born. The Christmas story starts in the Garden of Eden. The Christmas story starts in the Garden of Eden. We think people who possess the most power, who put fear in our hearts, are in control. James Montgomery Boyce said, God is not troubled by this cosmic rebellion. God laughs at such folly. Herod had a plan. He knew what he was going to do. And then the wise men never returned. Now Herod's going, shoot, was I too sincere? Did I blow my cover? You ever listen to someone talk and in your mind just go, bro, you're so fake. You're so fake right now. Really, 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 your fish was this big? Really, really, bro? Oh, you went carried that boar on your back from all the way up there, all the way back down here, for real? Wow. Herod must have been thinking that, was like, man, was I too sincere? What did I do wrong? How did they outwit me? Not knowing that in his rebellion to go after the Son of God, God just went, ha, watch this. Herod thought he was smart. Guess what? God's smarter. What made it even better was that, when you think about the Christmas story and how many angels appearing there was, how many announcements there was with the angel, right? Gabriel to Zechariah, Gabriel to Mary, the host of the angelic choir singing to the shepherds, announcing Jesus' birth. Really bright loudness of God. And a lot of times we expect God to talk to us this way in a big, bright, and loud situation. But God didn't go to the wise men with a big, bright sound and said, do not go back to Herod. No. God spoke to them in a dream and said, hey, take the scenic route back. When the wise men didn't come back, Herod had every male child from 2 years old and younger killed in Bethlehem. But God told Joseph, let me say this again, but God told Joseph in a dream to go to Egypt. God will take what the enemy meant for evil. God will take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it to good. Herod thought he won because the wise men didn't come back. Fine, I'll eliminate the entire problem, kill every boy from 2 years and younger. That will surely get rid of that idea. And that will surely tell the people, guess what? I am the king of Judah. But God took Herod's plan and told Joseph, get up and go. So in Herod's mind, he won the victory. But in reality, he lost tremendously. Jesus, no more than 2 years old at this point, was a threat to Herod. Now, Herod was a grown man. It's not a raise of hands. How many of you are threatened by little kids? Like you scared of them? No one? No? So why is Herod scared of a little kid? Why is Herod scared of his little kid? Because this little kid did something in Jerusalem and does something even today that we need to be aware of. This little kid brought hope in a dark situation. Jerusalem was all astir when the wise men came, because why? All of a sudden now we have hope that the Messiah is here. We have hope that the rightful king is here. We have hope we can get away from being underneath this lunatic's reign. And the Messiah will set up his kingdom, and we will see the glory of the Lord once again enter in. Now, did it happen that way? No, it did not. But we today, having hindsight and seeing 2020 hindsight, have that hope. We have that hope today. Anytime Jesus enters in, or anytime Jesus shows up on the scene, hope arrives. Hope arrives. When we look at Jesus, we see the crying of Rachel for her children and the promise that those tears will be wiped away. Paranoid, powerful Herod failed to kill young Jesus, and the child king would outlast the illegitimate king. The seed of the woman would crush the head of Satan. As Christians today, we show the hope that Jesus is the promised Messiah, the King of all kings, and his kingdom shall last forever when we talk to our neighbors and friends, when we work and play. We share the hope of Jesus. We share his kingship. We share his kingdom. We can look at the state of the world today and have hope. We can look at different situations that we're in and have hope. Daniel Darling wrote, "We are the ones who can look evil in the face and say to ourselves and the world, the new day is dawning. It is always darkest before the dawn." You see, Herod was scared that he would lose his throne. Herod was scared that he would lose it all. Herod was scared that he would lose the fear that he had in the people because of the Messiah coming. So Herod did everything in his power to make sure that never happened. How much different of a story would this be if Herod actually surrendered his throne to baby Jesus, or toddler Jesus, I should say? How much different would this story would be if he did that? It's Jesus' throne, right? It's rightfully his, right? It's not Herod's one. He knows it's not his. He's not even from the same line as these people. He's their cousin. He's not from the line of Jacob. He's from the line of Esau. He knows he's not the legitimate king. And he understood enough to call the people who knew the prophecy, who knew the law, and realize that this person is supposed to be where I am at. How much different would the Christmas story be if Herod went to Bethlehem, bowed down and worshiped Jesus, and gave him back the throne of David? Did he do that? Obviously not. But you see, Jesus was a threat, even at 2 years old, to Herod's rule. But the child threat is also a threat to us. What do I mean by that? Herod was unwilling to give up his throne, give up his rule, give up everything that he had, even if it wasn't really his. It belonged to Jesus. It should have gone back to Jesus. In our lives, are we willing to surrender the throne of our hearts to him? Are we willing to give Jesus what should be his? You see, Jesus is a threat to us because Jesus goes against everything that our human sinful nature stands for. So to give Jesus room in our heart, to give him the seat and the throne in our heart, requires us to surrender our hearts. It requires us to give him the place where he belongs. And let's be honest, we're not really keen on that. We're not really keen on that. We really don't want to give control over to God. We really don't want to. I think I used this example a while ago. If you guys know the Green Lantern Corps, there is an orange lantern. And they have an oath that powers up their rings to recharge it. They put it up against their lantern. And the orange lantern's one, it's all based on the spectrum, the emotional spectrum. The orange lantern's emotional spectrum is greed. And their little pledge to recharge their ring was mine is mine, is mine is mine is mine, mine. You see, when we begin to surrender ourselves to God, when we begin to give things over, the entire time we're doing that, we are just saying, but this is mine. This is mine. For those of you who have been to a struggle, for those of you who have grown with the Lord, I don't care if it's been for a month or 40 years, every time God has asked you to surrender something, every time God has asked you to give up something, every time He has tried to get you to draw closer to Him, did it hurt? Did it hurt? Was it a struggle? See, growing in the Lord is a struggle. For a plant to successfully grow, it has to fight its way out of the dirt. For a bird to grow properly, it has to fight its way out of the egg. If you didn't know that if a bird is hatching and it's pecking at the egg, and you go over there and you help it remove the eggshell, you have just signed its death certificate. Because that right there is essential for it to build up strength. Jesus is a threat to us because He goes against everything and who we are. Now, is it for the better? Yes, obviously. But we don't like giving up stuff. We don't like surrendering one bit. And it's a struggle. It's hard. But growth doesn't happen without struggle. Growth doesn't happen without struggle. Growth doesn't happen without pain. You don't build muscle by lifting the same weight over and over and over again. You need to add more weights to it to build the muscle. So every time we surrender a part of ourselves to God, it's going to be a struggle, it's going to be a pain, but there's rejoicing afterwards because He will take the throne in our hearts. If you have overcome something, if God has helped you through something, do you go back in your mind and say, wow, I really missed that? Or do you say, that was worth it? Do you say it was worth it? Or do you say, man, I miss doing those things? I really miss doing those things. Why did God set me free from that? I have no idea. Why did God make us cross the Jordan? We were better off on the other side of the Jordan. We were better off wandering the wilderness for 40 years. Why did God have us cross the Red Sea just to go into the wilderness? We were better off in Egypt. Why did God set me free from this problem that I had? I was better off when I was with the problem. Really? You don't know the struggle I went through. You're right, I don't know the struggle you went through. But the struggle you went through is important because it helps you grow stronger in Him. It helps you to grow stronger in him. It helps you to lean more into him. Jesus is a threat to us because he requires us to surrender to him. He requires surrender. He requires obedience. He requires us to cast our cares upon him. He requires that of us. But what mine is mine is mine is mine is mine. Mine. No touchy. You see, we all have a little bit of Herod in us. Now, yes, we may not be all just a lunatic king who's paranoid and violent. But you see, Herod was unwilling to give up something that was rightfully not his. Herod was unwilling to give up something that was rightfully not his. Are you willing to give up something that's not rightfully yours? Are you willing to give up something that really doesn't belong to you? Are you willing to surrender your heart? Are you willing to surrender your mind? To the child in the manger? Are you willing to give it up so that Jesus can do a work in you that you have never seen before? How much different would the story have been if Herod surrendered the throne and gave it to Jesus? Now, I know that's not part of God's plan. Jesus had to go to the cross. I know that. But how much different would it have been if he surrendered the throne to Jesus? Now ask yourself this question. How much different would my life would be if I surrendered my heart to him? You see, I don't care how long you've been walking with the Lord. I don't care if you've been going to church your entire life. I don't care if you've been up to the altar, say the sinner's prayer 45 million times. I don't care about that. If you have not surrendered a part of your heart to God, then he is not the king over your heart. He is not the king over your heart. He is not the king over your mind. If you have not surrendered it to him, then Jesus is still a threat to you. Jesus is still a threat to you because he goes against everything that's there. Can you play the music, please? We have hope in Jesus. We have hope that we can show the rest of the world because of who he is. All other kingdoms will pass away, but his kingdom will be forever. His kingdom will be forever. But is his kingdom forever in here right now? You see, he will reign on the throne forever, but if he doesn't reign in our hearts right now, if he doesn't have our hearts completely, if he doesn't encompass all of it, as great as that kingdom will be, we'll never see it. We'll never see it. And as long as we don't surrender our entirety to him, Jesus will always be a threat. He will always be a threat to us. See, you can learn a thing or two from Herod. You can learn a thing or two from Herod because was he insane? Was he a paranoid ruler? Yes, he was. But if he would have surrendered the kingdom to Jesus, it would have been a different story. It would have been a completely different story. Jesus came into this world to set man free, to break the bondage of sin and death. You don't have to have bondage anymore because of who Jesus is. You can have freedom in your heart, in your spirit, if you surrender to who he is. Maybe Jesus has all of your heart, but does he have all of your mind? The Bible does say, take captive every thought. When you look at different situations going on in your life, do you look at the situation or do you look at the God who's greater than the situation? The moment the situation becomes bigger than your God, Jesus is a threat. But the moment you keep your eyes on God, God's a threat to that situation. Where is your heart? Where is your mind? Maybe in and of itself, that's the Christmas story for it. With God saying, here's my son, I have given to you. Now will you give me your heart? Will you give me your mind? Will you give me your life? Father, surrendering is not easy. Surrendering is not an easy thing. But Lord, I just ask right now, in this time, that you begin to reveal to us things that are holding us back, things that we have not given up to you. So that we may draw closer to you. So that we can have you be the king in our hearts. Lord, I just ask that you help us to surrender. You help us to surrender all that comes in the way of who you are. Church, is God telling you need to work on something? Is God telling you need to let something go? You need to trust me. You need to put it in my hands. You don't have to carry it anymore. You don't have to be burdened down by it. Just cast it at the feet of Jesus. cast it at his feet. Father, work in us, work through us, Lord God, so that we may draw closer to you, so that we may become more like you, Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen.